Hello and welcome again to another screencast edition of Adobe Photoshop. Today we'll be focusing on predominantly layer masks. So what layer mask does, it pretty much composes two images and blends them into one and fills it into one picture without having to permanently damage the image in itself. So, of course, I have this line here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an animal hybrid. So, what I'm going to do next is get one of my files right here, go to File, Open. And then, of course, I'm going to go look for the following things: my RAM, and let's see, a pug. So, I'm going to hold the control key while I select two of them, press open, and I should be able to have that. Now, what I'm going to do is put the pug's face onto the lion's body. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select my tab right here. So I'm going to use the quick selection tool because this would be the most efficient option for selection, especially with the level of detail of the pug with its wrinkles it has. So I'm going to use my better judgment and select just only the face, depending on what you want and need. For the supposed photo manipulation, you have to take consideration on the level of detail that you need. If it's just for a face, then just focus predominantly on the face. Try not to just get the whole darn thing. Just work smart and not too hard. So um, make sure you have that. I'm going to make sure all my selections are taken care of. There. That's a good selection, more or less. So I want to clean this up by going to Select and Mask, which is right here on the top. So what it does, it refines the selection to make sure and isolates the supposed selection here to ensure that everything is selected carefully. Now, I noticed that I think I still got the chains here. So what I'm going to do is increase the brush using the right bracket key on your keyboard. So I'm going to hold the Alt key to make sure I've deselected everything. Go back to Select and Mask. Okay, so everything's deselected except for that. So I'm going to increase my radius just a smidge. I'd only need just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. Smooth things out right here just to make sure everything's clean and cut more or less. So if I want to add a little bit of feathering, I can. But overall, this this thing is pretty much on par. So I'm gonna press OK. So once I have that already, what I could do is Control C to copy. I'm gonna go back to my black lion mane lion, and right here I'm gonna press Control V as in victorious to paste. Now what I'm gonna do is use my selection tool to adjust. And what I'm going to see is look at the face proportions from one to the other. So I'm going to hold the Control key, T key right here and hold the Control key to sort of work on the depth of said image of the lion. So he's sort of like a tilt a little bit, 3/4 angle. So I want to make sure I am able to convey that. So here it is. There we are. I'm going to move this here to its proportionate face area. Maybe increase the size just a little bit, but not too much. I'm going to press enter. So we got it right now. So that's great. What we're going to do now is begin the process of establishing the layer mask. So what I'm going to do is unlock the background layer, and it's going to turn into layer 0. I'm going to call this lion template. I'm going to double click on layer 1 and rename this pug face. So press enter. There we go. And I'm going to move the pug face layer downwards. And now it's going to be hidden. It's still there, but it's hidden. So what I'm going to do is go to my lion template layer, and on the bottom there's a little icon with a square with a circle in the center called Add a Layer Mask. It's going to add a layer mask here, and what I'm going to do is click on this little layer mask layer here, and begin my process of painting through it. So the shortcut key for the brush tool is B as in boy. You could use, if on the bottom, if you want to switch foreground and background colors, you could use this little button right here, or you could press the X button to flip to and from. So right now we're going to be using black, because black, what it does, it hides the original image and works its way into this. So working here to here to here. So I'm going to just slowly but surely get this position correctly. There we go. Now if I make a mistake, like within these parts, maybe I could trim a little bit more back down, press X again, and I'll flip it to white. And what white does, it sort of uh, begins that process of revealing. Now, as you know, this is part of the chin of the lion, so this means we need to also resize the pug's face here. So I'm going to increase the size here, make some adjustments. There. So I'm going to fix that. Go back to the brush tool, press X to, go back. And one of the biggest thing is be sure to go back to your layer mask template layer. Because if not, you may do the same mistake that I just did right now and pretty much almost permanently damage. But thankfully, there is a history button, if a history feature right here to sort of undo that, or Control Z. So if you don't have that, be sure to go to Window and History right there. Usually it'll show up right here, but I usually like to have it right here with my layers panel. But other than that, just proceed forward carefully and just continuously paint. Use the brush strokes to sort of brush through air. That seems within a reasonable. Here we go. There. That seems pretty reasonable, more or less of a design. Now, I want to add in maybe using the ram's head. So right here, I like the horns. I like how it's set up. In certain cases like this may require multiple layer masks. So what I'm going to do is use the quick selection tool right here. Make single clicks, sometimes small broad strokes. You could change the brush size by just pressing the left bracket key as such. Right here. And of course, since there are ridges on the horns, be sure that you're thorough on your selection, in and out. Not too much, but just enough. Again, it's within your discretion. So right here, I'm going to use the select and mask. Right here, use the radius tool, smooth things out, clean it up, and probably shift the edges right here to see what would look good. So I'll press OK, Control C, Control V to paste. Now this is overly large. What I'm going to do is Control T to resize it. Here we go. And we have that. Now, it would look good as is, but you want to make sure it goes in as smoothly as you can. So I'm going to resize this a little bit more, add a little bit of sort of depth, some pseudo depth right here. and turn it in. So if you want to sort of rotate it just a little bit, you could just hover within the corner and it'll create a curled arrow like this, like that. Now, what you could do now next, of course, you could easily move that other layer back here. But if you want to make sure that you got the selections, you could do the same thing again right here, just to make sure. If you want an accurate selection, I recommend that you do this. It's a lot easier than having to do a lot of the guesswork, just to make sure everything is clean. Okay, there. So we have that right here. Go back. And all you have to do is use the brush tool again. And just work your way. And I'm going to use the broad brush of it because one, I have my selection tool to sort of get through all this without having to go into the details. This is a lot more cleaner and efficient that way to work with. You want to have like some shadows like this because you want to also have that sort of look of like the main sort of overlapping into this, just like that. So Control D, bam. So make some adjustments here. Haha. And there you have it. There is your hybrid animal, if you will. You could add in adjustments within your set character right here. So I'll use this to adjust the pug's face. I'm going to use what you call an adjustment layer. Work with hue and saturation. Work with a different hue just to make sure it gets sort of a reddish color. And here we go. We've got it. And that creates like a layer mask. But other than that, this pretty much concludes today's screencast tutorial of Adobe Photoshop.